Five Nights at Freddy's 2, often regarded as the best game in the series, ranked at the top with some of the best horror games of all time by some of the biggest YouTubers on the platform, a fan favourite in the community, and I think it sucks. About 5 months ago, I made a short video on why I thought that Five Nights at Freddy's 2 was kinda bad. However, looking back on that video, my thoughts have changed quite a bit. In fact, not only do I think it's bad, but I think that this game is the absolute worst one in the series. I remember being a kid at 13 and thinking this game looked so good, watching Let's Plays, but when I actually played the game, I just thought it sucked. And now, every time I mention that I don't like Five Nights at Freddy's 2, everyone starts roasting me and saying how wrong I am. And you know what? That's totally fine. If you really enjoyed this game, don't let me take that away from you. I'm glad that something I personally don't like is still able to give someone joy. It makes the game at least worthwhile for existing. So this video is not meant to roast anybody who likes this game. This video is made for those who agree with me and for those with an open mind who are curious about why I feel so strongly about this. So join me on this critical analysis as we dive into the depths of Five Nights at Freddy's 2. First, a bit of history. 8th of August 2014. On this day, a little game called Five Nights at Freddy's, made by Scott Cawthon, would be released to a sea of unsuspecting horror fans, and boy did we eat this game up. Within a matter of weeks, this game was everywhere on YouTube and was the talk of the town. Everyone and their mother was talking about the 4 animatronic boys and their quest to kill the hopeless security guard before his shift was over. The super unique style of gameplay for the time with the Uncanny Valley made this game a prime candidate for becoming a global sensation. So considering the game's immediate success and growing popularity, it would only be a matter of time before Scott Cawthon would start working on a sequel. And as expected, a sequel did come. However, this sequel would come a lot sooner than anyone was anticipating, releasing on the 11th of November 2014. Just 95 days later, which is a little over 3 months. Now, I know a few people who make games, even games that don't require as much effort and aren't very complicated, and every one of them would say that making a fully functional game within 3 months is pretty difficult. Well, 4 of the 5 said it would be impossible. Half of them said that it would be possible, but it would just be very difficult. The point I'm trying to make here is just looking at this game, you can 100% tell that it was rushed. While I'm sure some code could have been reused and made the development of this game a lot easier, the main issue is that this game feels barely functional. It's not very fleshed out, and I'm going to go into great detail in this video and to explain why this game is just a hot mess and just hasn't aged very well, as well as just being a bad game overall. So let's dive in, going through this game night by night, starting with night 1. When you start up the game, you're greeted with this disturbing cutscene that is shown from the perspective of Freddy Fazbear from the first game, where you are able to look left and right to look at Bonnie and Chica, while a disturbing ambience plays of childlike laughs and screams and weird static. These cutscenes progress as you complete each night, and I'll explain how they do so as we go on. I just want to bring these up as I think these are actually very solid cutscenes and really set the player up for the game that they're about to play, or at least that's the vibe. I think that these cutscenes are really well executed, and combined with the audio, it's really creepy. I think that all the cutscenes that this game has are great, and the Death Minigames are some of the most iconic of the whole series. But I'll talk about that a bit later, when it matters a little bit more. For now, I want to quickly go through the game night by night and explain my problems with this game, so let's begin. The game opens up, welcoming you to the brand new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza via the same means of the first game, with the newspaper article explaining that they are looking for a nighttime security guard to run the night shift, and you, the player, have taken the job. Now, right off the bat, the office that you are in is very different to the one of the previous game, and with it kinda doing the opposite of the first game. In the first game, you feel trapped as the tiny office makes you feel like there is no means of escape. You have these big doors that keep the animatronics out, but puts emphasis on the fact that if the power runs out, you are trapped. The second game does the opposite, making you feel exposed, which is a very different feeling to being trapped. Now, this does add to the horror aspect a bit, but I have a few problems. The problem is that when you are exposed, you want to hide, which I guess you kinda do with the mask, but that leads to my biggest problem with this game, and that is that the mask mechanic itself. The idea that you have to hide in a suit or a mask isn't the issue, it's the way that it's implemented. For starters, the actual way you fend characters off with the mask doesn't feel the way it should. What I mean by that is you should feel like you have time to put on the mask. If an animatronic is in your room, why on earth would putting the mask on save you? Like, you've been caught. If they are in the hallway walking towards you and then you put the mask on, that would be different. Not to mention, the way the blackouts are implemented just feels weird. If you fail to put on the mask in time, most of the time the characters still leave until you either put the mask on or flip the camera. I know this is a game mechanic and part of the limitations of Click Team, but it just ruins the immersion when the character doesn't kill you instantly if you don't have the mask on. This was sort of rectified in Ultimate Custom Night with the characters in there actually killing you on the spot if you fail to put the mask on. In a horror game, immersion is everything, and I think this game doesn't do a great job of that in my eyes, and I'll continue to explain why as we go along. Anyways, so on night 1, you only have 4 threats that you have to deal with. The first of these is the puppet. The puppet's mechanics is one of the main things that you'll have to deal with while playing this game. Every once in a while, you have to switch over to cam 11 and wind up its music box to prevent the puppet from getting angry. If the box winds all the way down, the puppet will escape and come to kill you. The puppet also doesn't care if you're wearing the mask or not, you are just dead. Now, this mechanic sounds good in concept and all, but I think once again, taking on Ultimate Custom Night's approach with this mechanic, that game did a way better job than this one. For starters, I think the puppet's music box is just a little too high maintenance. Wait, scratch that. It is way too high maintenance, to the point that you are literally forced to stay on the puppet's camera for the whole night, and for pretty much every single night. Night 1 you can get away with clicking off it for a while, but from night 2 onwards, the puppet's music box gets so much faster to the point that it's not even worth clicking on any other camera, because doing so will probably get you killed. There's another thing that prevents the player from even ever looking at the camera, but I'll get to that when it's more relevant. So anyways, Phone Guy, who was meant to be dead until we learn it's a prequel, oh my god. Anyways, Phone Guy explains the basics of this being a brand new restaurant and how the new animatronics have new facial recognition software that is meant to be able to detect a predator from a mile away. It's not outright said, but it's implied that this is meant to be linked to the child killer hinted at in the previous game. Anyways, this new software has some quirks, as since the animatronics were never given a proper night mode, and as a result they walk around the building at night. They also have the previous glitch of thinking that anyone in the building after hours is a metal endoskeleton and they will kill you. To prevent this, we are introduced with the main defense mechanic we have, which is the mask. We are told to put on the mask if anything wanders into your office and they should leave. Now on night 1, the chances that the only thing that you are going to die to is the puppet, although all 3 toys can come and attack you too. Toy Chica from the left vent, Toy Bonnie from the right vent, and Toy Freddy from down the hallway. Now they all work a little differently, but the premise is the same. If one of the toys show up at the vent opening in your office, put the mask on. For Toy Chica, wait about 4 to 5 seconds until you hear vent sounds again and she should be gone. For Toy Bonnie, wait until he moves across the screen and you should be fine. Toy Freddy is the first animatronic that we are introduced to that follows the blackout mechanic. When any animatronic that follows the blackout mechanic, which is Toy Freddy, Withered Bonnie, Withered Chica, or Withered Freddy, enter the office, you will need to put the mask on pretty much instantly. This sequence lasts for 5 seconds, and if you don't have put the mask on or take too long to put the mask on, then you will die either right there or the next time that you use the mask or camera depending on the situation. Now the mask mechanic in my opinion is quite a lacking feature. Sure, it's definitely a cool idea and I don't hate it, but I have a few problems with the masks. For starters, the animatronics take way too long to enter your office and scan the room, which is meant to be the point, but in terms of adapting smooth gameplay, it becomes an issue and a slog for later nights. I'll explain more later on when I get to talk about the later nights, but the main thing you gotta know about these nights is I just don't think the mask really has the feel it should have. It should feel like a real challenge to get the mask on properly, because 9 out of the 11 characters can be dealt in mostly the same way. It ruins both the challenge and just creates a pretty boring gameplay loop. Night 2 introduces the last mechanic that we got to deal with, being the flashlight. This night we are introduced to Withered Foxy, who is not fooled by the mask, but doesn't like bright lights, just like me at 12 in the afternoon when my mum wakes me up. So to deal with Foxy, all you gotta do is flash the light down the hall when he's there. Another character, Balloon Boy, will attempt to get into your room the same way that Toy Chica does, and if he gets in, he will disable your flashlight for the rest of the night, which basically means you are dead. Now once again, like the mask mechanic, this doesn't feel like a very good mechanic. The flashlight kinda just works the same if Foxy is there or not, so you don't really feel like you are pushing Foxy back. It just feels like Foxy gets bored and leaves if you're not looking, which isn't really what is meant to be happening. So this is the last mechanic that this game has, and only things that happen on night 3, 4, and 5 is the rest of the characters join and it gets harder, but otherwise, that is it. Now look, this isn't that bad. The first game pretty much explained every single mechanic within the first night. The difference is, in the first game, although we have a rough idea on what to do, there's still so much mystery and trial and error that we have to figure out because we are only told the bare essentials. So, we are spending the first 4 nights pretty much learning how to deal with everything, so night 5 is like a final challenge. In Five Nights at Freddy's 2, we basically get told how to deal with absolutely everything by night 2, and although there's bits and pieces that you will have to adapt to as you play, the general gameplay loop is the same. Now look, if I'm being completely honest, the general gameplay loop by the end of the game is super boring and super high maintenance for no reason. Here is the basic gameplay loop that you will be stuck in by night 3. Immediately switch to camera 11 for the music box. Every time you get off the cameras or you are forced down by one of the black hat characters, you put on the mask to prevent them from killing you. Flashlight down the hall and check the vents lights in case anyone is there. Rinse and repeat for 6 minutes straight. Now that is Five Nights at Freddy's 2 as a game. The rest of the nights just add the Wizards, who are just more aggressive version of the toys, and do the blackouts, which again is easily beaten every time with the main gameplay loop strategy. As a game, this gets super boring, super fast. There's no stress of running out of power except for maybe unwinding the music box too much. There's no ability to get immersed in the environment because you are stuck on cam 11 the whole night, so you never get to see the really cool camera angles and shots that you can see the different characters with on the cameras, and the fact that every character behaves pretty much exactly the same ruins any challenge from the game whatsoever. And most importantly, everything feels so flat to execute that you are not really feeling like you're even doing anything. When I play this game now, I feel nothing, and I personally think that feeling nothing in a game is worse than feeling annoyed or frustrated. Now, is this game completely lacking? No, of course not. The actual lore and environments and atmosphere of this game are actually really good. Now, before I talk about that, let me talk about how I think the gameplay loop in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 could be improved or made better. Now, if you haven't watched my video on Fazbear Entertainment Storage, what the hell, bro? Anyway, but regardless, all you need to know about for this video is that this fan game pretty much does everything right in terms of improving the loop of Five Nights at Freddy's 2. For starters, every action feels really good to pull off, and it really feels like you're fending off the characters, like Toy Freddy with the flashlight and Toy Bonnie with the mask. Now let's get back to Five Nights at Freddy's 2 and a few ideas that I have. Out of the 11 characters, 9 can be dealt with using the mask in much the same way. Why not make it that one of the characters gets mad at you for putting the mask on? So you would have to leave the mask off, otherwise you die. This prevents the player from just throwing the mask on every single time without consequence. I also think that the timing should be more strict and more balanced for the mask. For example, in Ultimate Custom Night, Toy Bonnie and Toy Chica just enter the room and you have to throw on the mask when this happens. Doing this will prevent the stalling strat while also adding to the environment and making it feel genuine. Maybe have the Wizards make a sound effect to let you know that you're about 3 seconds away to have the mask on before they enter at all, and if you fail, you die. I also think that everyone should leave faster. In another Five Nights at Freddy's fan game, Five Nights at Freddy's Rewritten in '87, which is a Five Nights at Freddy's 2 remake, characters take about 1 to 3 seconds to leave rather than 4 to 6 seconds, which really helps with the frantic gameplay. Also, I think that the music box should either be nerfed severely or should have a timer. Like every time you fully wind the box off, you have like 30 seconds where you don't have to touch it until you hear a sound indicating you need to wind it again. Not only will this make the music box a fully maintenance-based task that you constantly have to worry about, it will also allow you to get fully immersed and to look at the camera. I think there's a few other things that could be added and tweaked to help improve this game, but I won't drag on. Now, I want to talk about the atmosphere and the ambience as well as the extra content, but to do that, I first got to talk about the designs of the characters themselves. So there's 2 types of characters in this game, the toys and the Wizards. Out of the 2 of them, the toys are easily the worst designed. Toy Freddy is actually my favourite out of the main 3 characters. Something about the frame where he is standing in your office is a bit unsettling, which is something that both Toy Bonnie and Toy Chica are unable to ever be due to their super over-the-top designs. I mean, Toy Chica without her beak is unsettling, but with her honestly sexual design, it is just very distracting. You can't tell me Scott knew what he was doing with this one. Toy Bonnie, in my mind, is the worst designed character in this game and is the least scary. His over-the-top design is honestly not scary at all and just feels so intense and cute, to the point that you just can't take him seriously at all. The toys are just not very scary, And while I do understand the reason these guys exist, and while I do prefer their designs to like the Funtime animatronics in terms of being realistic as possible with the concept, it still feels a bit out of place. Obviously, for someone like me who has been following this game since it came out, it feels really natural to have these characters as part of the cast, but I still think that they are a bit more out of place compared to some of the others. Balloon Boy is a very interesting design, and if I'm honest, I'm kind of on the sideline about how I feel about their design. On the one hand, I like the idea of a little wooden boy like animatronic, but on the other hand, he just feels so out of place in this game. And look, I'm not the biggest fan of humanoid style animatronics except for one, and that is the puppet, who is actually one of my favourite designs in this game and in all of Five Nights at Freddy's. Now, I don't know if this is meant to be an actual animatronic or not, but regardless, I really like the puppet's design. It's honestly one of the most scary looking models in the entire series, and not only that, but the mystery around this character is just unreal. Not to mention the idea of a puppet character is just inherently creepy. This kind of just felt like what Balloon Boy should have been, it's just done better. Now, Mangle is regarded as the best design out of the new cast, and I will say I both love and hate this design. Now look, I know a lot of people think this argument is invalid and that I shouldn't make a big fuss out of it because this series is full of unrealistic ideas, but I don't understand how an animatronic is able to walk around on the ceiling. It just feels a bit weird. I mean, let's be real, I think Mangle looks really cool, at least the model does. Now, I also want to use this moment to talk about another thing I don't love about this game, and that's the jump scares. I don't think these jump scares are terrible by any means, but in terms of rating them by the games with their jump scares alone, I would place this at like number 4, with Sister Location, Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and Five Nights at Freddy's 4 beating Five Nights at Freddy's 2 for jump scares. Now, like I said, I don't think the jump scares are bad, but for starters, I'm not super startled by the death noise. It's definitely a solid noise, but I would have liked a differing noise between the toys and the wizards. Also, most of the animations for the jump scares are either them just fully jumping at you, which sometimes looks good, but other times just looks weird, or just a zoomed in or scaled up image of whatever character is killing you. Golden Freddy's jump scare in this game especially is a perfect example of the lacking effort in the jump scares. Now, they aren't the worst set of jump scares in Five Nights at Freddy's or even in horror games as a whole. They are solid, but I think they could have been better, especially for the big sequel. Okay, now that I've gotten that little tangent out of the way, let's talk about the highlights of this game when it comes to the models. The Wizards. The Withered animatronics are my favourite set of animatronics besides the original crew, and as you know, it's because I'm a sucker for realistic looking animatronics, because that's what I find to be the most terrifying in terms of a horror game character. Withered Freddy is honestly just horrific, and clearly shows how to make a dismantled animatronic that used to entertain kids for a horror game. His sheer size alone is enough to just scare the crap out of you, and honestly, I might prefer this design over the Freddy of the original. His render when he's in the office is easily my favourite out of all the office black hat animatronics. It's a shame that I think he has the worst jump scare out of all the Wizards. Withered Bonnie is probably the most popular and the fan favourite of the bunch, and I completely understand why. Once again, his sheer size makes you feel small, but his features like his missing arm and face just adds to the uneasiness and uncertainty of this game, which is crucial for horror. The way his body leans with the weight of his remaining arm is really cool, and once again, with the original game, this allows Withered Bonnie to develop a unique connection with the players of this game. Withered Bonnie being the first character we saw in this trailer was definitely raised the hype so much, because his design was just unbelievably solid. The moment in the trailer where his eye lights up has always given me goosebumps. Withered Chica is on a whole nother level of terrifying. Once again, this is part of what I like about these games, how every character can seem so unique that you develop a unique connection of each one. Withered Chica's wide eyes contrast with Bonnie's lack of eyes, and her seeming to be more reptile-brained than Bonnie, who seems like a super aggressive yet intelligent character. Chica's hanging jaw with the extra lot of endoskeleton teeth, and once again her enormous size, really helps instill fear into you. And I think Withered Chica has one of the best jump scares in the game. Now, in saying that, one thing I'm not a huge fan of is her T-posing arms. Like, I kind of understand it, but to be honest, it's just a bit goofy. Otherwise, I do like her design. Withered Foxy seems to be the fan favourite among the Withers besides Withered Bonnie, and I both love and hate this design. But much of that hate stems to my love of the original Foxy design, but I still really like the Withers design. The long snout and long hook let you know this is a character designed to kill. The fact he behaved so differently than the others was a smart decision, although I once again wish that the way it was implemented was done better. Withered Golden Freddy is honestly a design I once again both love and hate because I love the original design just so much more. One thing I do like about both the Withered and the original cast is how they are the most like actual animatronics that you would see in real life. And I know I'm going to get slack because it doesn't matter if they're realistic or not. It's just not a sound argument. And okay, look, it's more of a personal preference than anything, but that's just personally what drove me into loving the first game and these games as a whole. The fact that this is something that could happen, or, you know, that you can see happening, there's no doubt of, well, yeah, this could never happen in real life. The first game, these guys were able to move around, and the way they moved was super creepy, and yes, most likely very unrealistic, but you could see yourself in that situation, and there's not too many questions you would ask, except for maybe doubting the supernatural. Now, enough about the animatronics. Let's talk about the pizzeria itself. Layout-wise, it's definitely a bigger place, but it's not so big that you get lost. I really like how most of the building is centered around the hallway in front of you. This allows you to always be checking the hall in front of you because that's where everyone is. If the building was too large, you wouldn't stress if a character wasn't near you because they would be so far away. Now, that being said, I do have a few problems with the office design, and once again, it's a personal grievance. Look, in what universe does it make sense for an animatronic to crawl through a ventilation system? Springtrap I understand because while he's wearing a suit, he wouldn't weigh as much as an animatronic with an endoskeleton side. Real animatronics weigh up to 900 pounds or 400 kilograms. And according to the wiki, the animatronics in Five Nights at Freddy's are somehow half of that at about 400 to 450 pounds or roughly around 200 kilos. I imagine Springtrap would be less than that to make it like say 100 kilos. Okay, now picture that much weight moving through a ventilation system. Vents are very easy to break. In fact, the most sturdy vents can only hold up about 300 pounds before breaking. So there's no shot that they are holding up these characters. And look, I get it's a really popular and very scary concept to see a threat crawling through the vents, but the animatronics just seem like a huge stretch. Not to mention, why are there two massive vents on the side of this massive office? And why does it connect to another room? The only character I can see going through the vents is Mangle and maybe Balloon Boy. I mean, why not have doors? And in fact, could have been a neatish idea, but at the same time, I understand Scott wanted this to be different than Five Nights at Freddy's 1, although adding one extra spot to check doesn't seem to help with that at all. Anyways, that's about everything to talk about with the character and location designs. Now it's time to talk about the lore and the addition of minigames and cutscenes. So, as I mentioned at the start of the video, between the nights we are shown cutscenes of us looking through the eyes of the Five Nights at Freddy's 1 Freddy, with Bonnie and Chica next to us on the show stage. As the nights progress, both Bonnie and Chica start to slowly turn their heads until they are fully staring at us. Meanwhile, the creepy ambience plays each time. On night 4, the puppet appears and starts to slowly follow us as we turn our heads. And on night 5, Golden Freddy is seen standing in the middle of the room. Now, what does this mean? Well, to answer that, we have to look at the death minigames that it can occur every time you die. There are 4 of these minigames, but we only really need to look at one to understand the between night cutscenes, and that minigame is the Gift Gifts minigame. In this minigame, you play as the puppet, who is surrounded by 4 dead kids, who the puppet tries to give presents to, and then, after all 4 have received a present, the puppet walks around and places a mask on each respective animatronic before Golden Freddy jump scares you. Now, it's common knowledge that just before Golden Freddy's jump scare that we can see a 5th child. Now, I believe that the between night cutscenes are dictating this exact death minigames through the eyes of Freddy. We are seeing the kids getting stuffed into the suits by the puppet. Now, there are other minigames like the Give Cake minigame, where we play as Freddy and try to feed the kids as we watch a child outside crying be killed by the strange purple man before the puppet jump scares us. The Foxy Go 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 minigame, where the Foxy performs on a group of kids before the strange purple man shows up yet again, and the kids are dead, and then the Save Them minigame, where the puppet leads Freddy around the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 pizzeria with dead kids lying around before the purple man attacks us saying you can't. Now, I won't go into the lore too much in this video, because that's not the point of this video. What I will say is that despite everything I dislike about Five Nights at Freddy's 2 in terms of its boring and repetitive gameplay, its horrible mechanics that feel so lacking and its unrefined nature, there is something special about this game because of the lore and the secrets. In the first game, we have a bunch of Easter eggs that hinted at the lore, but now there are so many more questions to be asked and proof that there's an actual story here to be told. And yes, I will be making a video talking about the lore, but I wanted to end this Five Nights at Freddy's 2 hate train on a positive note. I like the lore in this game. I think that despite everything, this aspect of the game is super cool and really well made. I just wish that the rest of the game was like that. I just felt like this game had so much potential and it fell so short because of being rushed and cutting corners and just to release some kind of game to the public. And look, I won't say it hasn't made a lot of difference for Scott and his massive empire. I wouldn't say this is an example of a bad product from the start. This is just a game that I think was popular and well received because of what it was set up to be. It was set up to be a massive sequel to one of the biggest games of the year, and it delivered in some way, shape or form. And that people looked past the flaws of this game, and people continue to do so. Anyone who played the game when it first came out, or didn't even touch the later challenges, don't understand the frustrating oh my god, I forgot to talk about the custom night. Oh my god, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 has one of, if not the most terribly designed custom nights out of any of the Five Nights at Freddy's games. No, I'm being serious. I think that this is the worst designed and least fun custom night out of every single one. 1020 mode is unbelievably difficult and just bullshit most of the time. So let me explain why that is. For starters, the fucking music box. This shit winds down so fast that you are literally forced to watch the camera the whole night. It takes like 15 seconds. Like, oh my god, that's just really stupid how fast it goes. Now, with every character being on 20, this means that everyone attacks every 5 seconds, and remember that the blackouts take about 5 seconds to take place, and then you have Foxy who can kill you on every 10-second interval, so while technically you can get yourself into a cycle, this is almost guaranteed to get thrown off because the vent guys take like 6 seconds, so you have to keep the mask on for them. And the worst part of Custom Night? Toy fucking Bonnie. This stupid blue rabbit makes this whole night so much harder because it completely fucks with the RNG of this night. Oh, Toy Bonnie showed up? That's cool. Put the mask on until he decides to come out of the vent, which can take upwards of like 5 seconds if he feels like it. Then he crawls out of the vent and moves across your screen for 5 seconds. And by the time he's finished, either Foxy has killed you on the spot, or the music box is so fucking unwound up that you're either struggling to keep it wound or the puppet's on its way to kill you. Seriously, this challenge is just stupid repetition of the same boring features the whole fucking game has that it's been riding on since night 2. I have beaten it once and I never ever want to again. This night can go fuck. Well, I guess with that, I've covered everything this game has to offer. Well, except the secret characters and the Easter eggs, but I don't really think we need to go into them considering they don't do much to the game itself. So with that, that concludes my analysis of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and why I think it is easily the worst game in the Five Nights at Freddy's series. In my mind, this game could have been one of the best easily if Scott had just spent a little more time fleshing out details, but instead we got a clippy mess. Still, I won't deny the impact this game has had on the franchise as a whole, and I still think this game was one of the most defining factors that made this franchise as big as it was. And if you love this game, that's totally fine. This was just meant to be me explaining my thoughts on a game I personally wish was better. But anyways, that just about does it for me. If you'd like to see a Five Nights at Freddy's fan game that I think fixes all of Five Nights at Freddy's 2 problems, click this video here. It's a banger, I promise. Also, if you could subscribe to the channel, I would love you forever. Anyways, that's it. Bye!